Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, The second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for joining us in today's event. Thank you for taking the time to register and participate in this event. We are thrilled to have you here as we explore key topics in research and finance and banking. I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude that we are all gathered here today in good health. My name is Vidya, and I'll be your moderator who will guide you throughout today's event. And I'm excited to inform you that this is the fourth session of our research lecture series. And we still have one more to go in November. We invite you to stay with us through the remainder of the series. So don't miss the chance to deepen your understanding and engage with experts in our upcoming sessions. This event is organized by ESG Dataset, Center for Environmental, Social and Governance Studies, or CESGS. Also, in collaboration with Department of Accounting, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Airlangga. ESG Dataset is a platform that provides corporate data ranging from annual reports to sustainability reports. ESG Dataset is one of the business lines in CESGS. While CESGS itself is an ESG research center based at Universitas Airlangga that specializes in sustainability issues. We have developed a global database on corporate sustainability practice, compiled from ASEAN countries to leading companies around the world. For today's event, we have a packed agenda ahead. We will start with a 60-minute presentation from our esteemed speaker, Dr. Abu Hanifa, followed by a Q&A session. Then there will be a brief introduction of the ESG dataset. Finally, we will distribute feedback forms, take some group photos, and wrap up the event. And please do remember to stay with us until the end of the session because completing the attendance form is necessary for you to claim your e-certificate. Additionally, keep an eye on the group chat as we will be sending the link to the certificates there. Okay, as we're about to begin, let me bring up a brief biography for our speakers in today's event, who is Dr. Abu Hanifa. So, Dr. Abu is currently an assistant professor in finance at the University of Southampton, Malaysia, where he also leads the technological innovations, financial intermediation, and environmental sustainability research group. With a PhD in finance and banking from University of Malaya, Dr. Abu brings over 13 years of experience in teaching, research, and academic administrations. He has taught at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels in various areas such as finance and accountancy. And his research interests include banking crisis, financial regulation, and also market structure. Dr. Abu has several research grants funded by the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia and the Central Bank of Malaysia, among others. His work has been published in reputable journals, including the International Review of Economic and Finance and Pacific Basin Finance Journal. He is also an editor for journal that focus on business and accounting research. Okay, so now we have here Dr. Abu Hanifa. It's really nice to have you here with us for this fruitful discussions. So how have you been, Doctor? So how are you, Dr. Abu?
Yeah, thank you, dear moderator, Vidya Inthani.
Yeah,
I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me to give a lecture or to give a talk on my research. Yeah,
okay. So it's nice that you're here and you're doing great. So without any further ado, I welcome to Dr. Abu Hanifa to begin the presentation. Please,
yeah.
Abu, the time is yours.
Thank you. I'm sharing my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, we
Can you?
already see the slides.
Yeah. Or, or you? Uh, can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Ah, that's
Yes,
good.
and
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Firstly, I would like to actually thanks to Center for Environmental, Social, and Governance Studies of University Airlangga, Indonesia, for organizing a beautiful session, particularly in the form of a series of research lecture. So in the research lecture, actually, I would like to present one of my research paper. And also I will explain how to, that is, firstly, I will explain my research paper, then I will explain actually how you can write a research paper. Actually, in a research paper, what component should have and what information you need to provide in each and every component. And if you want to publish in a good journal. So my paper is like the vessel 3 liquidity requirements and bank risk taking in dual banking system after the global financial crisis. So this is my the topic for my research. Uh, uh, for this, for choosing this topic, actually, there is a background. There was a global financial crisis in 2007 until 2009, and during the global financial crisis, actually, many banks failed, and many banks also, there was actually example of many bank run. And there are many actually research, and most of the research observed that most of the bank run happened due to the liquidity crisis. That is, liquidity crisis identified as the main cause for the global financial crisis in USA and across the world. And as liquidity crisis was the main reason for the banking crisis during the global financial crisis, that's why Vessel Committee on Bank Regulation, Vessel Committee improved Vessel standard. That is, previously the Vessel standard was Vessel 2. Then after the global financial crisis, Vessel 2 became Vessel 3. That is, in the Vessel 3, liquidity requirement incorporated. There is liquidity requirement incorporated in the Vessel 3. These are net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio to capture both long-term liquidity and short-term liquidity for the bank. But actually, there is no study so far whether these liquidity requirements or liquidity standards for long-term liquidity and for short-term liquidity for the banks actually make the bank stable or fragile. So to help policymaker to redesign liquidity requirements, actually, uh, I just took the initiative to write this paper. That is whether Vessel 3 liquidity requirements make the bank stable or accelerate banks to take more risk, particularly in the dual banking system after the global financial crisis. That is, in my study, there are two issues. First one is liquidity holding and bank stability. And these two issues or these two characteristics are the most important characteristics for the banking industry. Because, bank as a financial institution, banks should be stable. If banks are not stable, bank cannot ensure smooth functioning of intermediation process in the financial system. And also bank cannot contribute to economic prosperity or economic development, because bank can contribute to economic prosperity or development through expanding credit or by giving loan to production, consumption, of distribution of goods and services. So if the banks are not stable, bank cannot perform its function to contribute for economic prosperity and development. And also, bank as a financial intermediary institution, bank performs normally two activities. These are loan creation and deposit collection. So for creating loan or for giving additional loan to the investors or entrepreneurs, bank should have enough liquidity. If the bank has no enough liquidity, bank cannot create loan. And also, if the bank wants to actually attract depositor, bank should have uh, public trust. Okay, so if the bank cannot hold enough liquidity, bank cannot ensure public trust on the banking system. That's why bank need to have enough liquidity to um, attract depositors and also build public trust on the banking system. And also, bank need to have liquidity to prevent themselves from the bank run or financial crisis or bank insolvency. That is, bank should have enough liquidity and bank also should be stable. Then only bank can contribute to economic prosperity and development. But in theory, actually there is a debate whether liquidity holding is good or bad for bank stability. That is, there are two contrasting theories in literature. One is bank liquidity stability theory or liquidity stability view. It's also known as supervisory view. Another one is liquidity fragility view. Liquidity stability view claims that bank should have enough liquidity for making them more stable. Because if the bank have enough liquidity, bank can use that liquidity to develop liquidity buffer. And that liquidity buffer can be used to prevent themselves from the bank failure or bank run or systemic crisis. And liquidity crisis actually identified as the major reason of the banking crisis during the global financial crisis. As a result, Basel Committee on Bank Supervision upgraded Basel 2 standard to Basel 3 standard, incorporating two liquidity requirements. These are net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio. On the other hand, liquidity fragility view claims that actually if the bank hold more liquidity instead of uh, stability, bank will become more fragile. Because if the bank hold more liquidity, bank can create more loan. And with creating more loan, bank can create an asset bubble. So with the asset bubble, actually, that is bank asset bubble will be, increased if and only if the loan quality of the bank degraded and if the lending requirement of the bank also weaken. And if if there is a asset bubble, particularly actually the moral hazard of the bank will be increased, and that moral hazard will expose banks to insolvency or crisis. That is, there are two views about the liquidity stability. One view is liquidity stability view, and another is liquidity fragility view. Liquidity stability view actually claims that more liquidity is good for bank stability, but on the other hand, liquidity fragility view claims that liquidity actually makes the bank unstable or fragile or expose banks to crisis. And this conflict actually continues for conventional bank and Islamic banks, despite both conventional banks and Islamic banks are different in terms of asset liability structure, product innovation, and risk management strategies. There are many research on liquidity stability for also Islamic banks, but the results are uh, conflicting. That is, a study observed that uh, more liquidity makes the Islamic bank stable, and some other research or studies observed that more liquidity makes the Islamic banks fragile. Even though there are a number of studies, but none of the study examined actually Basel III liquidity requirements. That is, whether net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio elevate or exacerbate uh, bank risk taking in the dual banking system. That is, there is a clear research gap in the literature. So, to contribute to this particular research gap, actually, this research has been conducted. That is, the objective of this research is to investigate role of liquidity holding on bank risk taking in the dual banking system. And to capture liquidity holding, actually, this study considered Basel III liquidity requirements, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, and estimated their impact on bank risk taking for both conventional and Islamic banks. And this study claims that as Basel III requirements actually for both conventional Islamic banks and both conventional Islamic banks actually need to maintain both net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio. That's why Basel III requirements may have the similar impact on bank risk taking for both conventional banks and Islamic banks. There are some reasons. Firstly, both Islamic banks and conventional banks actually involved in performing same activities, uh, lending money or creating loan and also collecting deposits from the customer. Even though both types of bank are different in terms of product design, profit sharing or risk sharing, Sharia compliance, prohibition of interest, and speculative and derivative trading. And also in product pricing, Islamic banks actually consider interest rate of the conventional bank as the benchmark. And third reason for my claim is Islamic banks also develop their products by modifying the conventional interest-based products complying with the Sharia law. That is, when Islamic banks develop a new product, that they actually modify the conventional bank's interest-based product by complying the Sharia. This is a third reason. And last reason is actually both conventional banks and Islamic banks actually under the supervision of the same supervisor. So, for example, both type of bank actually controlled by the central bank or same regulator, and also the deposits from the deposits from the conventional banks and Islamic banks are protected by the same deposit insurance scheme. That's why the impact of net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio or the Basel III requirements on the bank risk-taking tendency for the both conventional and Islamic bank should be similar or almost same. This study contributes to the literature and policy making in different ways. Firstly, this study contributes to the liquidity stability or fragility debate by investigating the impact of both long-term and short-term liquidity holding on bank risk-taking for both Islamic and conventional bank. That is, we are contributing to the liquidity stability debate by investigating the impact of net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio on bank risk-taking for dual banking system. Secondly, it contributes to the literature on liquidity creation for Islamic and conventional banks by employing Basel III liquidity requirements, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, to capture both long-term and short-term liquidity holdings for the bank. Thirdly, it contributes to the regulatory policy debate whether liquidity is good or bad for bank stability. Because we know the effectiveness of liquidity requirements depends on its usefulness in reducing liquidity pressure. And literature review, literature gap, and also hypothesis development. There are a number of literature already on liquidity holding and bank stability, and their findings not consistent. Their findings are divergent. There are a number of studies which claims that liquidity is good for bank stability, and there are a number of theoretical and also empirical studies which claims that liquidity makes the bank fragile, or liquidity makes the bank unstable. And there are a number of theoretical papers which claim that excess liquidity and resultant weak loan requirement can raise the issue of moral hazard for the bank. Therefore, we developed our first hypothesis is liquidity holding exacerbate bank risk taking. Regarding the Islamic banks, or for the dual banks, liquidity holding and bank risk taking, there are a number of studies. A number of studies observed that Islamic banks are less vulnerable to risk and crisis. And another group of studies observed that Islamic banks are more vulnerable to risk and crisis due to restrictions on derivatives and limited access to the money market participation. On the other hand, Hassan and others in 2019 claims that liquidity risk, that is having less liquidity, makes the bank unstable, but conventional bank stable. Another study observed that excess liquidity makes both Islamic bank and conventional bank unstable, but it makes Islamic bank more unstable than conventional bank. So there are a number of research on liquidity holding and bank risk taking during the crisis, and also for non-crisis period or normal period, but there is no consensus particularly. But none of the study actually captured liquidity holding considering Basel III liquidity requirement, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, to capture both long-term and short-term liquidity. That's why actually there is a research gap, and to contribute to this research gap, actually this study has been conducted. And as there are a number of theoretical research, and a few research claim that more liquidity makes the bank fragile, that is increase bank's intensity to take more risk in lending activity. That's why the hypothesis 2 is developed in the way that Basel III liquidity requirement, that is net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, have similar impact on bank risk-taking behavior for both Islamic bank and conventional bank. Methodology actually to estimate the impact of liquidity holding on bank risk taking, this study considered regression 1. So for bank risk taking, this study considered 3 bank-based measures for risk taking, that is natural logarithm of GS score, non-performing loan ratio, and loan loss reserve ratio. And liquidity holding is captured by 2 Basel III liquidity requirements, that is net stable funding ratio and short-term liquidity ratio, which is a proxy for liquidity coverage ratio. And to estimate the impact of liquidity holding and bank risk taking, this study controlled a number of bank level control variable and macro level control variable. And this study accept hypothesis 1 and 2 if the coefficient of beta 1 is negative and significant for the natural log of G score and positive and significant for loan loss reserve ratio and non-performing loan ratio. And for estimating regression, that is equation 1, this study particularly use that is a Blundelband and there is a two-step system GMM of um, Blundell and Bond to 1998. And because two-step system GMM can control some specification problem of panel regression model, such as endogeneity, heteroscedasticity, and autocorrelation. As the study used two-step system GMM, before running two-step system GMM, this study performed a number of pre-diagnostic tests and also a number of post-diagnostic tests for two-step system GMM. So as a pre-diagnostic test, this study actually applied Aldrich test to test autocorrelation and Pushpagan-Cook-Wisber's test to test heteroscedasticity problem, and also Darwin and Watson test to test endogeneity issue. And after estimating two-step system GMM, this study also used some post-diagnostic tests. So for example, Hansen J test to test instrumental validity and AR1, AR2 test to test serial correlation at level 1 and level 2, and also used Wall test to test goodness of fit of the model. And to ensure efficiency of the GMM result, this study also applied a number of robustness tests. So for example, it used dynamic OLS and dynamic fixed effect to ensure efficiency of two-step system GMM result, because the lag-dependent variable of system GMM should be in between the value of the coefficient of lag-dependent variable that you have from dynamic OLS and dynamic fixed effect, because dynamic fixed effect has upward biasness and dynamic OLS has actually upward biasness problem, and dynamic fixed effect has downward biasness problem. So you can actually check whether GMM result is efficient or the value of lag-dependent variable is in between the coefficient value of the lag-dependent variable of dynamic OLS and dynamic fixed effect. In addition, we included revenue diversification, which is a ratio of non-interest income to total revenue, as additional control variable for equation 1. And also we used an interaction term of liquidity risk and bank risk taking to check the too big to fail effect on bank liquidity holding and bank risk taking dynamics. In addition, actually, this study also used two static models. For example, fixed effect and OLS instead of dynamic model. That is, this study used a number of robustness tests. As mentioned earlier, this study captured bank risk taking by using three bank-based variable. These are Z score, non-performing loan, and loan loss reserve ratio. And liquidity holding is measured by two Vessel 3 liquidity requirements. These are net stable funding ratio and short-term liquidity ratio. And this for measuring net stable funding ratio, this study actually used equation 2, and for measuring short-term liquidity ratio, this study used equation 3. And this study controlled banks' size, capitalization, and profitability as bank level control variable, and controlled regulatory quality as institutional quality variable, and GDP growth rate and inflation rate as macroeconomic control variable. And for GMM, or two-step system GMM, this study utilized two additional external instrumental variable, particularly property right and financial freedom. Regarding the data sources, this study utilized 3,331 annual bank year observations from 457 Islamic and conventional banks from 17 OIC member countries over the period of 2010 until 2021, and bank data extracted from Fitch Connect database. And 17 OIC member countries are Bahrain, Bangladesh, Brunei, Egypt, Indonesia, Jordan, Kuwait, Malaysia, Maldives, Oman, Pakistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Tunisia, Turkey, and UAE. And bank level control variables extracted from World Bank developed indicators and instrumental variables for system GMM extracted from Heritage Foundation database. Regarding the descriptive statistics, actually table 2 presents the sample coverage across the country. That is, here you can see the distribution of Islamic and conventional banks for different sample countries. So, for example, there is how many banks are considered from different countries, and the distribution of bank year observations. Table 3 presents the descriptive statistics of the data, and here we see natural log of Z score, particularly mean score for Z is higher for Islamic bank, and the mean for loan loss reserve ratio is lower for Islamic bank, and mean value for non-performing loan ratio is also lower for Islamic bank. It means that Islamic banks are more stable, and Islamic banks actually takes less, the credit risk or portfolio risk in compared to conventional banks. And with respect to the liquidity holding, particularly long-term liquidity, the average score for net stable funding ratio is higher for conventional bank. That is, conventional bank holds more long-term liquidity than Islamic bank. But in terms of short-term liquidity holding, Islamic banks hold more short-term liquidity than conventional banks. Regarding the bank size, conventional banks are more bigger than Islamic bank, because natural log of total assets actually which captured bank size is higher for the conventional bank than in compared to Islamic bank. And we also observed that the capitalization ratio, that is equity ratio, is higher for Islamic bank. That is, Islamic banks are more capitalized than conventional bank. And the profitability ratio is also higher for Islamic bank in compared to conventional bank. That is, in terms of different indicators, actually Islamic banks are much better than that of conventional banks. And table 4 presents Pearson's pairwise correlation between the variables. And here we see that actually there is no multicollinearity issue because there is the coefficient of correlation coefficients of uh, the different variables we see actually less than 0.5. Table 5 presents two-step system GMM results of the impact of long-term liquidity holding on bank risk-taking or bank stability for all banks, for conventional banks, and also for Islamic banks. And we see here the coefficient. Okay, but before that, we can explain. We see here the statistics for Pushpagan Cook-Wisvers test is actually significant in all models. That is actually our data set actually suffer from endogeneity issue. Sorry, our suffer from heteroscedasticity issue. Okay, and the test statistic for Oldries test also we see significant for all models for all banks. It means that this data set also suffer from autocorrelation or serial correlation problem. And same goes to Hausman test and Darwin test. It means that actually our data set also suffer from endogeneity issue. That's why as our data set suffer from 3 specification problems, that's why we need to use actually a particular model with which we can address these 3 problems: serial correlation problem, heteroscedasticity problem, and endogeneity problem. That's why particularly we used two-step system GMM. And here we see for all banks and conventional banks and also for Islamic banks, we see the coefficient of net stable funding ratio is negative and significant. Okay, for all banks, for the first model, where we consider loan of G score as a measure of bank stability or bank risk taking, is significant in first model. It means that actually if the bank hold more liquidity, actually bank stability will be reduced. It means that actually if the bank hold more liquidity for long term, particularly bank will take more insolvency risk. Yeah, that is this actually this result implies that our first hypothesis is supported like that. And we can have the same message from model 2, model 3, and other models for conventional Islamic bank. Particularly, we see the coefficient of net stable funding ratio is positive and significant for loan loss reserve ratio model, and also same impact for non-performing loan ratio model. That is, if the bank hold more long-term liquidity, bank will have more credit risk, and also bank loan quality will be weakened. And the result is actually consistent for conventional bank and Islamic bank. Then in table 6, we estimated the impact of short-term liquidity holding on bank risk-taking or bank stability. Here we see in the first model, the coefficient of short-term liquidity holding ratio is positive and significant, but the value of coefficient is very less. Okay. But on the other hand, if we look at the model 2, we see the coefficient of short is positive and significant, and also the value of the coefficient is very small. And we can observe the same thing for the conventional bank. But in case of Islamic bank, the value of coefficient is a bit higher. That is, if we look at the model, particularly the loan loss reserve ratio model for all bank and non-performing loan ratio model for all bank, and uh, the the same model for Islamic bank and conventional bank, we see actually the results are consistent. It means that actually if uh, banks hold more short-term liquidity, the result will be the same. That is actually bank will take more risk, particularly that is bank stability is weakened. So our findings suggest that liquidity requirement induce bank risk-taking behavior for both type of bank, particularly Islamic bank and conventional bank, but at different degree. And net stable funding ratio have almost same impact on bank risk-taking for both types of bank, particularly for Islamic bank and conventional bank. However, the influence of short-term liquidity ratio or short on bank risk-taking is very small for conventional bank, because we observed the coefficient was near about zero, but it is moderate for Islamic bank. So from here, we can actually reach to the conclusion that actually if the bank hold more liquidity, so the bank will take particularly more risk. That is, more liquidity makes the banks more unstable, because more liquidity holding increase banks' moral hazard to take additional risk in their lending activities. That is, our findings consistent with liquidity fragility hypothesis. As I presented in the previous slide, so this study has gone through a number of robustness tests. Particularly, we estimated equation 1 using both additional dynamic models, particularly dynamic OLS and dynamic fixed effect, and also using static models such as OLS and fixed effect methods for net stable funding ratio and short, which is a proxy for liquidity coverage ratio. And we observe similar findings. That is, liquidity increases risk taking for both conventional banks and Islamic banks. And in addition, actually, we incorporated an interaction term of liquidity and bank risk taking to check whether uh, there is the impact of too big to fail effect on bank liquidity and bank risk taking. And we observed that the banks which are bigger in size, they hold more liquidity, but they take more risk. That is, our result is consistent with our original findings. And we utilized additional control variable, particularly revenue diversification, because if there is a scope of revenue diversification, then bank risk taking may be reduced. Actually, if the diversification actually have some risk minimization advantage, considering that revenue diversification incorporated in the model, but our result actually consistent with the original findings. That is, more liquidity makes the bank more fragile and less stable. So in summary, and particularly in conclusion, we can say that there are two objectives for this study. First one, the impact of liquidity holding on bank risk taking. And for first objective, we develop hypothesis 1. And the second objective is the impact of liquidity holding and bank risk taking for Islamic bank and conventional bank. And for that, we develop hypothesis 2, that is Basel 3. Basel 3 liquidity requirements have similar impact on bank risk taking for Islamic and conventional bank. And we utilized two hypotheses, particularly or two views, particularly liquidity stability view and liquidity fragility view. And our findings supports hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2. That is, we observed that Basel III liquidity requirements, particularly net stable funding ratio and short, that is liquidity coverage ratio, weaken banks' stability and uh, exacerbate banks to take additional risk in their lending activity. And we observe the similar impact for both conventional banks and Islamic banks. And based on our findings, we have a number of policy implications. The first policy could be like that as Basel III liquidity requirements, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, weaken bank stability and increase banks' risk-taking tendency. That's why the Basel Committee on Bank Supervision can give focus on redesigning the ratios. And as Islamic banks is still taking more risk, even though Islamic banks are more more stable or take less risk in compared to conventional banks, but the impact of liquidity holding on bank risk taking is high also for Islamic bank. So Islamic bank should conduct more research on Islamic instruments and Islamic money market, so that Islamic bank can utilize their additional liquidity for uh, promoting their stability and reducing their risk taking. So these are the reference and the question. So before question, actually, we can explain actually how topics should be chosen for finance research. So finance research, actually, we need to be very careful in choosing the research topic. Our research topic actually should have some policy implication. Okay, so with that research, we should have some, the policy. So, for example, this research topic is actually chosen to help policymaker uh, to check whether their policy actually bring good thing for their banking system, particularly after the global financial crisis. Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, you know, incorporated so liquidity requirements, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio. So this study actually checked whether those liquidity requirements actually makes the bank stronger or weaker. Then in the paper, actually there should have some parts. So for example, introduction part. In the introduction part, actually, if you can have some theoretical discussion, and if you raise a debate, it's a good thing. And there should have research question, that is why you want to do this research. So for example, in my study, I raised a question like that. It has not been examined whether and how Basel III liquidity requirement elevate or exacerbate bank risk taking dual banking system. So if you can raise this type of question, is a good thing. Then you need to report the objective in the introduction. And also you should have a claim, that is, according to this objective, what is your standing? And to support standing, you should provide some, the reason why you claim. So for example, my claim is that uh, Basel III liquidity requirement, particularly net stable funding ratio and liquidity coverage ratio, may have similar impact on bank risk taking for conventional and Islamic bank. So I provided a few reasons here, and there should have some contribution in the introduction part. Okay, then in the literature, we should actually consult with both theoretical literature and empirical literature, and based on the literature review, we need to develop our hypothesis. Yeah, and we need to highlight the research gap as well. And we should develop our model, estimation model, and we need to explain everything about our model variable, explanatory variable, there is a dependent variable, and the control variables. That is, we need to explain our estimation model clearly. And we need to provide some evidence that how we can accept our hypothesis, that is based on which criteria we will accept our hypothesis. And we need to give the idea about which model we will use or which method we will use to estimate our regression model. So, for example, we need to also give evidence or justification why we choose particularly, so for example, system GMM or other, other model. To support our claim, we can actually provide information about there is the issue, serial correlation, endogeneity, and heterogeneity. To control those things, actually, we need to apply system GMM. System GMM can address this all specification problem, and we need to give some idea actually how we know the coefficient or the results of GMM is more efficient. So there are some post-diagnostic tests. We need to give idea about the post-diagnostic test, and we need to give idea about actually some robustness test. That is, our result may not be, unbiased. Our result could be biased. So how we know our result are biased or efficient? We need to give evidence that we are using some additional test and we are adding some control variable in the model. That is, we can change our model in different ways. Still, our original model is valid. We need to give such evidence. So we need to actually provide the table for the variable. That is, in the table we need to incorporate all different types of variables, all independent variable, dependent variable, mean variable, interest. And also, if you use instrumental variable, you need to provide evidence of instrumental variable, and we need to provide information about the data and data sources in the methodology. Then in the results analysis, we need to provide the information about the our sample, and also the descriptive statistics, so that we can have some idea what result we will have later. Then we can provide the correlation matrix, that is our result, free from multi-collinearity issue. Then we can report our result according to our objective 1, objective 2. Yeah. And our that is presentation of result should be consistent with the table. So if there is any inconsistency, a reviewer can find and the pure paper will be rejected. Then we need to actually provide the information that, or we need to give evidence that our result is, original result is efficient, unbiased, because we have gone through a number of robustness tests. Okay, you can provide the information about the robustness test. Then in the conclusion, we need to provide information of our problem statement also you can reproduce. Then you can highlight your objectives, and then you can give evidence of your hypothesis, and then you can report whether hypothesis accepted or not. Then we need to provide some policy implications. So do you have any question now? My presentation is over. Thank you for your kind attention.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Abu Hanifa, for the outstanding presentations. And we do apologize if there are any disturbance that was occurred during the sessions. And Dr. Abu, one of the participants has asked if it possible to receive a copy of your presentation materials. Would you open sharing it with the participants?
Presentation material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abu. So the presentation materials will be shared along with the certificates in the group chat. So please
Okay.
stay tuned for the updates. We kindly ask all participants to stay in the group and not leave, as important updates, including presentation materials and certificates, will be shared there. So thank you all for the cooperations. All right, but before we move to the Q&A sessions, there will be an introduction to get to know more about ESGI or ESG dataset, and this presentation will be delivered by Miss Nisa Ayu. To Miss Nisa Ayu from ESG Dataset, the time is yours.
Okay.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Miss.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I will say thank you to Mr. Abu for the lightning presentation. And let me introduce myself. My name is Neni. I'm a business development team of ESGI Dataset. Today, I will introduce how easily to get the data for your research. So usually when we are conducting research, with variables or data from community reports, you will need to collect data by opening each report individually and extracting the relevant information and input it into Excel. But what if your research involves numerous companies and over several years, this process can become extremely time consuming. So to solve this problem, I will introduce ESGI Dataset. Wait a minute. Okay. ESGI Dataset is a platform that provides a comprehensive database from in company reports include annual and sustainability reports that source from company listed on a Indonesian, Malaysian, and Singapore stock exchange. So the data will present into a clean tabulated format and ready to be imported into data processing applications such as Tata, SPSS, or Extracta that enabling you to access it easily, quickly, and also legally. So you can visit our website www.sg.ai, and to get started you can sign in by simply register. You can register first by register your general on or domain account email. General email or campus domain email. So after register and login, you will be direct to Okay. So after you register and activation by email, you can log in first. So you can log in by email that you register and your password. After that, you will be direct to this page. Okay, you'll be direct to a page where you can access to our key feature, quantitative data and text analytics. For text analytics, this feature you can use this feature to search specific keyword from community reports and quantitative data to allow you obtain the data that you need. So before that, you can scroll down and you can view the data catalog. Okay. This page, you can explore variables that you need by variable name, group definition or measurement, price per cell, year coverage, and availability status. So if you have identified your variable, price, definition, measurement, price, and also year coverage, you can scroll up and click get your data. Okay. After that, you can click by dataset. To purchase the data, you should input the variable that you need, country that you need, industry, and also years that you need. For example, you need a variable ROA, return on asset, and you click this variable. And country, for example, unit Indonesian, industry, for example, unit IDX, and also X sector unit energy. Okay, and basic materials, for example. And years you need 5 years, for example, 2080 and to 2022. Okay, and add variable. So you can review the invoice first and click Show Result Preview. Okay, this is from, and also the data you can get ticker, company name, year, IDX sector, IDX subsector, and also variable that you buy, like for example ROA. So after that you can check out by one variables, and first you can review the invoice. You also can enjoy 50% discount by entering voucher code ESGRL4, and you can use 50% discount by us. Okay. After you can input the voucher, you can purchase, and the variables for your payment will sorry. Okay, for example, you need a ROA, country Indonesian, industry IDX sector, for example, energy and basic materials, 5 years at variable, and next you can show result preview. Okay, you can check out, and you can also enjoy 50% by entering code ESGRL4, apply, and you can payment. So the data that you have payment will be available in your dashboard. For example, download data, and you will get your data. Okay, if you have some issues like variable that you need are not available, or any problems, technical issues, or another question, you can click icon hotline, and you can directly contact us via WhatsApp. So that's all from me for introduction ESGI Dataset. Thank you for the attention. I return it to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Nani, for presenting us about the ESG dataset. So if you are interested in knowing more about ESG dataset, the information has already been shared in the Zoom chat, so maybe you can check that out later. So, dear everyone, I believe you all already have a question that you want to ask to Dr. Abu Hanifa. So now we will move to the next session, which is the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. And if possible, we also encourage you to turn on your camera while asking to make the interaction more engaging. You can also deliver your question through the Zoom chat if you are unable to open your mic. So, someone want to ask question, please raise your hand. So while waiting for the direct questions, maybe I will read the question in the Zoom chat. So the first questions come from Cahyo Adi, that he asked, just curious, what is Heritage Foundation database for your data source? What kind of data that we can get from there? So maybe Dr. Abu
Yeah,
Hanifa can answer
thank you
that.
very much. Actually, I was writing my response on the chat box. Okay, no problem. I can give answer here. Actually, Heritage Foundation is a foundation. Actually, it hosts some data. It provides some data. So the data is actually available for everybody. You can browse Heritage Foundation dataset and you can have the data free of cost. Actually, Heritage Foundation has maybe 8 variables, all variables actually related to institutional quality. Yeah. So for example, financial freedom, economic freedom, property right, like this, there are 8 variables. So for many countries, maybe more than 180 countries, these data are available. So you can browse Heritage Foundation dataset and you can have access to the data free of cost. Yeah. So these data actually very useful in your research. Particularly, I use a few variables from Heritage Foundation dataset as instrumental variable for my GMM model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
And
And then moving on to the next question comes from Anggono. He asked 3 questions. Hello, Dr. Abu. I have 3 questions regarding the research area. The first one is, are financial ratios such as liquidity ratios, solvency ratios, and profitability ratios considered part of accounting research or finance research? You want to answer first, or I?
yeah, I actually answered all these 3 questions on chat box, but I can actually repeat the same thing here. The first question is about there are the financial ratios, for example, liquidity ratio, solvency, performance, considered part of accounting research or finance. Actually, these ratios actually from financial statements and accounting finance actually particularly come from the same origin. Yeah, so you can use the same ratio for accounting research and finance research. Yeah. And what are the emerging areas, emerging future research areas in financial and banking studies? So actually, there are some emerging areas. So for example, before it was only finance, now it is a fintech, right? Technology. So you can do research on fintech, and you can research. Fintech brings some opportunities and challenge for the finance and banking industry. So there are some fintech uncertainties. You can actually work on fintech uncertainties and fintech operation of banks like this, and you can work also the banking regulation, banking market structure, those things. And these are classical. Still, these are relevant, and there are some macro-prudential policies also. So you can work on because government actually changing the policy yeah, every year for bringing some economic welfare for the country. So you can actually work on those policies and check the impact of those policies for banking performance, for economic prosperity or economic performance. Um, so there are many emerging issues, particularly. Yeah. And the last one is, are the financial ratios still relevant for current research, given that some investors no longer consider trend and fundamental analysis? So trend analysis and fundamental analysis is not same. Fundamental analysis actually from the classical finance. So there are 2 types of finance. One is theoretical finance. Another one is uh, behavioral finance. Yeah. So trend means you know about the behavioral finance, that is about the technical analysis, and fundamental analysis about the classical finance. Yeah, that is market efficiency. And many exhibit irrational behavior when investors in stock. Yeah, yeah. That's why there's another uh, that is there is a classical finance assumes that investor behave rationally, but there is another finance, that is behavioral finance. This behavioral finance considers that investors don't behave rationally. Investors actually influenced by different types of biasness, for example, overconfidence bias, hard bias in making their investment decision. Yeah. So there are 2 different types of finance. One is theoretical finance, another one is behavioral finance. Yeah. So for doing research on theoretical finance, you should have some assumption. Investors behave rationally. So that is, uh, in that case, still financial ratios are valid. Okay. Then any more question?
Everyone would love to make this session as interactive as possible. So if you have question, please feel free to turn on your camera and ask directly. I think it's a great opportunity to engage directly with Dr. Abu. And we also love to see you on screen. So anyone who want to ask directly, raise your hand, please.
Oh, do you have any recommendations for reading the good and latest research? So, yeah, there are a few top journals in finance. So, for example, Journal of Financial Econometrics, Journal of Banking Finance, then Journal of Financial Stability, Journal of Financial Intermediation, the Journal of Finance. So you can actually look at there is what type of papers those journal publish. So you can actually understand the trend of the finance research, and you can have idea about actually on what topic you can do your research.
The next
Yeah,
question.
banking article, yeah, same.
Next question comes from Yuki Dwi Dharma. Hello, Dr. Abu. What measurement you usually use for testing robustness and the quality of your model? Second question, why did you use GMM rather than ordinary panel data analysis? Can you give some tips how to make the research accept in reputable international journal? Can you tell me step-by-step instruction? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So thank you for this question. Actually, if you can remember my methodology slide, in the methodology slide, actually, I explained clearly actually why I choose GMM and what are the reason actually, your panel data set may suffer from some specification problems. For example, serial correlation problem, endogeneity problem, heteroscedasticity problem. So if still those problems present in your model, actually, you cannot have unbiased result. Your result will be biased. So in that case, you cannot publish your result. Okay. Uh, Therefore, you need to make sure that you are using a particular type of model. With that model, you can address all different types of specification problem. And also, you need to show evidence that actually you result free from any type of biasness. Okay. So, for example, before applying system GMM, I checked uh, serial correlation, endogeneity, and heteroscedasticity. Okay. Then after GMM, I run some post-diagnostic test for GMM. Say, for example, Hansen J test. That is actually for checking instrumental validity. So the coefficient for Hansen J test should be insignificant. If it is significant, your instruments are not valid. So if instruments are not valid, then still you will have heteroscedasticity problem. Your heteroscedasticity should not be resolved. So you can look at Hansen J test, the coefficient below or test statistic. Then to check the relevance of instrument, you can run another type of test, that is first stage F test. So if you run first stage F test, you can check the instruments that you are using are valid or not. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a dynamic OLS. The coefficient of dynamic OLS actually suffer from upward biasness problem. And there is a dynamic fixed effect. Dynamic fixed effects actually suffer from downward biasness. Okay. And the GMM results are coefficient. The GMM results are more efficient. That is, so GMM results actually the coefficient of GMM, particularly in between the results of dynamic OLS and dynamic fixed effect. So if GMM's coefficient actually in between these two results, it means that your results are efficient. Then you can actually report the result, and your results are unbiased. Yeah, and you can run some other diagnostic tests. So there are actually a number of tests you can run. So, for example, AR1 test, AR2 test, and also there are some other alternative methods you can apply, and you can estimate your result, and you can check whether your results are consistent or not. And also in the model, you can incorporate some other variable. So if you add some other variable, whether your original result is changing or remain same. So you need to actually do experiment with your model in different way. And if your original finding is actually remains same, it means that you can report the findings and you can publish in a very good journal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Dr. Abu. So once again, we encourage everyone to turn the camera and ask your question directly to Dr. Abu. I think it's a great chance, yeah, to engage personally and make the session more interactive and lively. So, is there any questions from anyone? So maybe while waiting for the live question, I'll start reading some questions that were submitted by the participant through our Google Forms. The first one is how can the company manage its cash flow to meet short-term obligations given its large debt burden, especially when 40,000 people depend on the company for their income? So, I believe in the context of a company with significant debt obligations, how can it effectively manage cash flow to meet the short-term needs, especially considering 40,000 people depending on it for income?
Yeah. So that is the company should have a strategy to manage the cash flow. So if cash flows not uh, stable, cash flow actually is a measure of bank stability or solvency. So the company should have a strategy how to manage the cash flow from operation, cash flow from investment, and cash flow from financing activities.
And then the next questions. What is the role of corporate governance in reducing risk in banking institution? So
Yeah,
maybe
corporate governance is a matter, uh, in not only banking, in every institutions, actually, there is a corporate governance. Because corporate governance actually needed to mitigate agency problem. Yeah. So there is a conflict of interest between, shareholders group and management group or managers group. There will have some problem in the firm. The share value will be decreased. That's why, uh, there is the importance of corporate governance. Corporate governance ensures that managers working for the best interest for the shareholder. Yeah. So there is a board of director, and board of director actually look after the issue that there is a system, the all systems actually functioning properly. There is a organization structure. So organization structure performing properly, and there is a flow chart of activity. All activities are performing according to the desired goal. Yeah. So corporate governance is very important for any type of corporation, any type of organization. It could be bank, it could be non-bank institution. Okay. Uh, so there is actually important role play by the board of directors. So board of directors actually designed only for establishing or for ensuring corporate governance to mitigate agency problem or agency conflict or conflict of interest between uh, shareholder groups and managers group.
okay, so maybe last questions come from Rika Artika. Please, for Rika Artika, can you ask directly to Dr. Abu Hanifa and open your camera?
Uh,
Miss Rika Artika?
Yeah, it's about carbon accounting, right? Carbon budgeting, carbon control. Investors now uh, more careful about how firms or banks actually responsible to the environment protection. Yeah. So that's why uh, to satisfy investors group, particular shareholder group, all firms, it could be bank or non-bank or any type of bank, any type of firm actually, they are uh, they are practicing sustainability in their business. So, for example, when the bank give loan to any project, they consider sustainability issue, whether the project is linked with any carbon emission activity like that. That is, banks actually mostly give loan to those projects which actually environmental friendly or environmental sustainable. And in that way, as actually bank involving ESG, environmental, social, and governance activity, banks also reporting those activity, okay, and also disclosing those activity through the financial statements, because actually investors want to see how firms, banks, and all type of firm actually uh, responsive to the environmental sustainability. And manage carbon accounting. So there is a particular guideline to report carbon accounting and carbon budgeting. So actually, there are some accountants, there are some accounting policy, accounting guideline. So complying with the guideline, comply with the accounting standard, actually, each financial institution, bank or non-bank, need to report the things. So for example, I want to do report in this way, I cannot do it because I need to follow a particular standard. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for your wonderful questions.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, we have reached at the end of our Q&A session. Thank you, Dr. Abu, that now we gain more and more knowledge from our expert, Dr. Abu Hanifa. I hope all questions from the participant have been answered well and clearly. And to summarize, let me share some key points here. So, regarding the liquidity requirements and risk-taking, the first key points, the study that Dr. Abu has already conducted finds that phase 3 liquidity requirements, particularly the net stable funding ratio or NSFR, generally increase the risk-taking behaviors in both conventional banks and Islamic bank through the degrees varies. Short-term liquidity impacts risk-taking moderately in IBs, in Islamic banking, but has minimal effect on conventional banking. This supports the hypothesis that higher liquidity reserve can encourage excessive lending and riskier asset acquisitions. And then the second point regarding the robustness of the result, additional testing confirmed that higher liquidity leads to greater risk taking across both bank types, with larger banks showing a stronger tendency towards this behavior. And then the last key points for the policy implications, Basel III frameworks may need adjustment to enhance stability for Islamic banks. Developing Sharia compliant financial product maybe could help manage excess liquidity effectively. Great. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Abu Hanifa, for sharing your insightful knowledge with us in today's event. We are very grateful for your time and expertise. And also, I'd like to say thank you for all the participants who joined in today's event. After this, we will send the feedback form that you can fill in order to claim the e-certificate regarding this event via Zoom chat. So please make sure to complete the feedback form. You can also scan the barcode that will be shown on the screen to access the feedback form. I would also like to provide additional information. So for those of you working on your dissertations or thesis, you can join the Pejuang Dissertasi group that will be shared by the committee via the Zoom chat. Before we end, we'd love to take a group photo first. I kindly ask everyone to turn on their camera, lastly, if possible, and our team will handle the capture. So please, everyone, give us a moment to set that up. Please, everyone, turn on your camera as we want to take a group photo together. Okay. Yeah, anyone? Please turn on your camera for the last time before we close this event. Okay. Oh, first, we want to share the barcode for the abstention. Okay, so everyone, as we already see on the screen, here are the barcodes for claiming the e-certificate. So please, everyone, fill this form. So once again, you can fill the following form as a requirement for claiming the e-certificates. You can scan the barcode on the screen, or you can manually type the address, the bit.ly address on the screen to fill the form to claim your e-certificate. We give you 2 minutes, yeah. We also already shared the link in the Zoom chat, so you can click the link. Once again, we give you 2 minutes until 4:35 to fill the feedback form. You can scan the barcode on the screen, or you can directly click the link in the Zoom chat. Okay, I believe it's been 2 minutes, yeah. Thank you for everyone that already filled the form. So now we'll be moving on to the photo sessions. Okay, so everyone, please turn on your camera for the last time, as we will be taking the photo together. Okay. Please, everyone, turn on your camera for the last time. Okay. Okay, we will now begin the photo session. Please, for the ESG team, help us to take the photo. So please look at the camera and I will count to 3, yeah? So 1, 2, 3. Again, for everyone that lost the chance for the previous moment, please turn on your camera and we'll take the second photo. Please, everyone, smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for opening up your camera. So I believe we already reached at the end of today's event. In closing, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all participants who have joined us from the start to finish. I hope the knowledge and insight we have gained today prove to be valuable and inspiring. On behalf of myself as the moderator, Vidya as your MC, and the entire organizing committee, we thank everyone for their participation, including the wider community and all our guests. We apologize for any mistakes or misunderstanding that may have occurred during the event. Please stay tuned in our group for updates on certificate and information about our upcoming 5th session in the research lecture series. With that, I will take my leave. Good afternoon, everyone, and see you at the next event at the 5th guest lecture series on the upcoming date in this November. Goodbye, everyone. Good afternoon.
Bye.
Currently, the global
Thank you.
climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, Leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges. Therefore, the second Asia Sustainability and ESG Summit is being held as a platform for stakeholders from across Asia, including academics and ESG practitioners from various industries, to discuss and exchange ideas in the effort to build a more sustainable future. Currently, the global climate is undergoing significant changes that are expected to accelerate in the future. Various studies have stated that these climate changes are undeniable. The risks associated with climate change can lead to financial problems for companies. To achieve a more sustainable future, leaders need to collaborate and build partnerships in facing these complex challenges.